Have you ever wondered why some men radiate an unshakable presence in dating, while others collapse into neediness the moment desire takes hold? The difference is rarely wealth, looks, or charm. It is not in the carefully rehearsed lines or the calculated gestures. It is found in the unseen posture of the soul, the way a man stands within himself, whether he is ruled by desperation or anchored in value. Picture this. A man sits across from a woman, her eyes luminous, her laughter carrying sparks of invitation. Yet beneath his smile, he trembles with silent hunger. Every gesture bends toward approval. Every word is shaped to please, as if his worth were dangling on the delicate thread of her acceptance. She feels it, the weight of his need, and what is heavy soon becomes suffocating. Desire that clings transforms into weakness. The paradox emerges. The more he grasps, the more she slips away. Another man enters the same scene. His gaze does not chase, it observes. His words are not bartered for affection, but flow like a river that owes nothing to the sea. His silence holds weight, not fear. He does not plead for space in her world, for he already occupies his own with depth and certainty. She feels it too, the absence of desperation. What is light becomes magnetic. Value, when not performed but lived, draws without effort. In the ancient Stoic view, this is the essence of freedom, the refusal to chain one's peace to the fickle winds of another's approval. Seneca warned that a man enslaved to passion, whether for money, fame, or love, is already defeated. For the Stoic, love is not rejected, but purified, released from the toxins of dependency. When you approach a woman as if she is oxygen and you are suffocating without her, you do not offer her romance, you offer her chains. And chains are not gifts that inspire devotion. Modern psychology names it differently, but sees the same wound: anxious attachment. Trauma imprints, the craving for validation that was denied in early years. The boy who once begged silently for a parent's gaze grows into the man who unconsciously begs for a woman's approval. The shadow he has not faced, the hunger he has not integrated, leaks through every word and glance. Women do not flee from him because he is unworthy, but because he has made her throne higher than his own soul. And no woman respects a man who abdicates his crown. You may feel this in yourself, the pang when she does not reply, the spike of anxiety when her interest wanes, the compulsion to send one more message just to confirm you are still wanted. This is the moment the Stoic discipline calls for, the pause before reaction, the remembrance that your worth is not in her reply, but in your essence. You must stand where Epictetus once stood, unshaken by what is beyond your control. Her silence does not diminish you. Your desperation does. High value is not an act you perform, but a state you inhabit. It is not playing hard to get, but being hard to move. It is not arrogance, but groundedness. A man of value does not starve in her absence, nor does he devour in her presence. He stands, as Jung would say, individuated, whole within himself. His masculine principle is not a frantic fire burning for fuel, but a steady flame that warms without consuming. And in that steadiness, the feminine feels both safety and mystery. Most women will never say this outright, but they test it relentlessly. They lean back to see if you collapse forward. They grow silent to see if your spirit panics. They watch whether you can withstand the void without scrambling to fill it. It is not cruelty. It is instinct. The feminine seeks the masculine that does not tremble before emptiness. She feels in her bones that the man who cannot hold silence cannot hold her storm. Thus, your work is not to chase her heart, but to fortify your own. To wrestle with your shadows, the little boy still begging for recognition, the wounded lover terrified of abandonment, the ego that equates rejection with annihilation. Bring these ghosts into the light. Speak with them, see them, integrate them. Only then can you sit before her without making her the answer to your unhealed hunger. Only then can you desire her without needing her to complete you. For the Stoic man in dating, the battlefield is not her response, but his own interior kingdom. Desperation is the enemy, self-possession, the crown. Every glance, every silence, every touch flows differently when you are no longer enslaved to the outcome. Then, paradoxically, attraction blooms, because freedom is the rarest fragrance a man can carry. There is a moment, subtle but piercing, when the man who leans too far into his desire feels the recoil of the feminine. Her warmth fades, her laughter turns brittle, her gaze slides away. He wonders what went wrong. He gave attention, kindness, eagerness. Yet it was not his presence she felt, but his hunger. Desire without sovereignty dissolves into grasping, and grasping always repels. The man of value, however, carries a different rhythm. He does not confuse interest with servitude, nor affection with dependency. He knows that to love from desperation is not love, but bondage. He embodies what the ancients understood, that mastery of the self is the highest seduction. A woman does not yield to him because he pleads. She leans toward him because she senses the rarest quality: detachment without indifference, strength without arrogance. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the mind adapts to what it steadily gazes upon. If a man gazes too long at the idol of approval, he becomes its prisoner. His identity bends like metal under heat, reshaped by the fluctuating reactions of others. But if he turns his gaze inward, anchoring himself in reason and virtue, then admiration, attention, and even rejection lose their power to wound. This is not coldness, it is freedom. And freedom, paradoxically, is the soil where authentic connection thrives. In psychological terms, this is individuation. The man who has reconciled the fragments of himself no longer begs for completion in another. He has faced the shadow, the fear of abandonment, the ache of insignificance, the terror of being unseen. Instead of projecting these wounds onto the women he desires, he absorbs them into his own strength. He learns that love is not a bargain for worth, but an offering from fullness. When you, the listener, step into this discipline, you will feel the shift. The compulsive need to explain yourself fades. The frantic urge to impress quiets. You do not text in panic when she withdraws, nor do you contort yourself into what you think she wants. You stand still, letting the silence test you. And because you are unmoved, the silence cannot break you. The masculine that does not beg becomes the masculine that is remembered. Some women, upon meeting such a man, feel both awe and disquiet, for they are accustomed to being the sun around which men orbit. But when they encounter a man who does not revolve around them, but around his own axis, they feel something deeper: respect. Respect is the root of desire. Without it, attraction crumbles into pity. With it, even the smallest gesture, a glance, a word, becomes charged with weight. This weight is not performed, but born of the inner work, the daily tempering of the self against comfort, distraction, and weakness. The Stoic did not seek hardship for spectacle, but for fortification. Cold baths, long vigils, fasting. These were not punishments, but proofs. If I can endure myself, I cannot be broken by you. Imagine carrying that into the realm of intimacy. What would happen if you sat across from a woman, not as a beggar, seeking coins of validation, but as a sovereign, sharing his feast? Consider also the subtle energy that passes between man and woman. Jung spoke of anima and animus, the feminine within the man and the masculine within the woman. When a man clings desperately, he projects his disowned feminine hunger outward, forcing her to carry the burden of his unintegrated need. She feels it not with words, but in the marrow of her intuition. She recoils, not because he is unkind, but because he has made her mother to his wounded child. Yet when a man integrates his inner feminine, nurturing, receptive, secure, he no longer unloads it onto her. He approaches not as a boy in need of care, but as a man in fullness. Then, her own feminine feels free to flow without fear of drowning. You must understand, high value is not a strategy, it is a being. You do not become valuable by playing games of scarcity, delaying texts, or feigning disinterest. You become valuable when you no longer crumble in the face of rejection, when your essence remains whole, whether she enters or exits your life. The absence of desperation is not indifference, it is mastery, and mastery speaks louder than seduction ever could. So let the silence test you. Let her distance challenge you. Let the void strip away the illusions you still cling to. For the man who can stand unbroken in that void becomes the man women lean toward without knowing why. He is rare. He is steady. He is desired not because he seeks, but because he does not need to seek. There comes a point when the man who has wrestled with his shadows no longer trembles in the presence of beauty. He may admire her smile. He may even feel the pull of her eyes. But he does not dissolve into her gaze. He stands whole, as if he carries within him a citadel no storm can breach. This is not the arrogance of distance. It is the serenity of one who has conquered his own dependence. The desperate man lives in constant transaction. Every word he speaks is weighed, every silence filled with the terror of being forgotten. He confuses attention with intimacy, response with worth, and presence with possession. But the Stoic man understands what Epictetus declared: no man is free who is not master of himself. If your freedom hinges on her affection, you have already surrendered the throne of your mind. Psychology confirms this truth. The nervous system of a desperate man hums with hypervigilance. Every pause in her texting becomes a wound. Every delay in her laughter, a sign of doom. He is not conversing with her. He is battling with the ghosts of his past, replaying the rejection of childhood or the neglect of old wounds. She feels the weight of these invisible battles, even if he never names them. What was meant to be a dance of connection becomes a battlefield of survival. But when a man has faced his shadows, truly faced them, his nervous system shifts. He no longer interprets silence as abandonment, but as space. He no longer panics at distance, but breathes. This calmness does not erase desire, but it purifies it. Desire becomes an offering, not a demand. He does not need her presence to soothe him, because he has learned to soothe himself. She senses this, the rare combination of desire without desperation. It feels like standing before fire, warm, alive, but never smothering. You, listening now, may wonder what it would be like to carry this presence. Imagine sitting across from her, hearing her laughter, feeling the spark of attraction. And yet your spine remains steady, your breath calm. You do not scramble for words. You let silence breathe between you without fear. You desire her, yes, but your worth does not depend on her answer. In that space, She feels the difference. She feels the man who is already whole. Women often test for this unknowingly. They lean back. They grow quiet. They withdraw. Sometimes not out of malice, but instinct. They want to feel the core of the man before them. Will he collapse into need, or will he remain unmoved, his essence intact? If he collapses, she feels burdened, for she must carry both her own heart and his fragility. If he remains steady, she feels safe, free to unfold her own feminine depths without the weight of his desperation crushing her. The paradox is stark. The more you demand closeness, the further it slips. The more you embody steadiness, the more it draws near. Jung would say this is the balance of opposites, the masculine pole that holds steady so the feminine current can flow. Without polarity, there is no dance. Without steadiness, there is no surrender. This steadiness does not mean cold detachment. It means strength rooted in authenticity. The Stoic man can smile, can laugh, can open his heart, but he does so from choice, not compulsion. He offers himself freely, without fear of loss, because he knows that nothing truly his can be stolen, and nothing stolen is truly his. In this spirit, rejection loses its sting. It becomes not a wound to the ego, but a clearing of space for something aligned. To become this man, you must discipline your inner world as fiercely as a soldier disciplines his body. Practice sitting in silence without reaching for distraction. Let your phone stay dark when anxiety tempts you to check for her reply. Notice the surge of need, and instead of obeying, breathe into it. Train yourself to endure the void. For the man who can endure the void becomes the man who can endure her storms. In time, you will see that high value is not built in the eyes of others, but in the furnace of your own solitude. And when you emerge from that furnace, the world will feel your presence differently. She will feel it too, not in your words, but in the quiet gravity of your being. The man who is high value without desperation is not chasing love. He is embodying it. There is a kind of gravity a sovereign man carries, one that cannot be faked or borrowed. It is born not from the approval of others, but from the crucible of solitude, discipline, and the refusal to betray one's essence. When he walks into a room, he does not announce himself with noise. His presence alone alters the atmosphere. He does not clamor for attention because he already commands it through the quiet certainty of his being. Women sense this long before words are exchanged. They are not responding merely to his face, his build, or his gestures. They are responding to something deeper, the vibration of a man who has faced his own void and returned intact. The desperate man radiates hunger, and hunger consumes. The sovereign man radiates fullness, and fullness nourishes. She feels in her body whether he comes to take or to share, whether he arrives as a beggar or as a king. Jung taught that the psyche seeks balance, and when a man collapses into need, the feminine instinctively resists. She does not wish to be the container for his lack, to become the answer to wounds that are not hers to heal. She yearns instead for a man who has already healed enough to hold her storms without drowning in them. The feminine wants to flow, to expand, to express, yet she can only do so in the presence of a masculine that is not consumed by its own chaos. Here lies the paradox. The men who seek most desperately to win her devotion often lose it quickest, while the man who does not need her in order to be whole becomes the one she cannot forget. This is not cruelty. It is the ancient rhythm of polarity. The feminine craves to be chosen, not chased. She feels most alive when she is drawn into the orbit of a man whose center is immovable. A man who could walk alone, but chooses, freely, to walk with her. You may feel the sting of these truths, for who among us has not tasted the bitterness of clinging, the humiliation of overgiving, the quiet despair of waiting by the phone? But that sting is the very fire that can forge you. Every rejection, every unanswered message, every moment of being overlooked, these are not curses. They are the raw materials of your awakening. The Stoic does not curse the storm. He trains within it. Let these moments strip away your illusions until only the steel of your essence remains. The world has taught men to equate worth with conquest, numbers, validation. But conquest without sovereignty is hollow. You can seduce 100 women and still remain empty, still tremble when the one you desire pulls away. The true high-value man is not measured by how many desire him, but by how little his essence shifts, whether they stay or go. He is steady, not because he is numb, but because he is free. To reach this place requires more than surface tactics. It requires deep excavation. Look inward at the boy who was once unseen. Look at the teenager who believed rejection was fatal. Look at the man who still equates silence with abandonment. These shadows are not your enemy. They are your unacknowledged teachers. Bring them to light, sit with them, and learn. For when you integrate them, you no longer bleed your need into the women you meet. You bring to them a presence free of hidden demands. And in that freedom, connection becomes possible, not the desperate entanglement of two wounded souls clutching for air, but the sacred meeting of two beings who could stand alone, yet choose to intertwine. The Stoic does not fear desire, but he does not drown in it either. He tastes love, but he does not mistake it for oxygen. He gives, but he does not bleed. He desires, but he does not beg. So imagine yourself again, in that simple scene, sitting across from her, laughter hanging in the air, silence blooming between sentences. You feel the pull, yes, but you do not grasp. You allow her to feel your presence, steady as stone, yet alive as flame. In that moment, she does not sense desperation. She senses depth, and depth is irresistible. There is a silence within the sovereign man that unsettles and attracts in equal measure. It is not the silence of emptiness, but of rootedness. The silence of mountains that outlast storms, of oceans that do not panic when the wind shifts. This silence is not withdrawal, it is power. For when a man can hold silence without fear, he signals to the world that nothing external dictates his worth. The desperate man, by contrast, cannot bear silence. Every pause feels like a wound, every absence like a rejection. He rushes to fill the space with words, jokes, gestures, anything to avoid the terror of being unseen. But what he reveals in his haste is precisely what he fears, that he does not believe himself enough. Women sense this with uncanny clarity. She may smile, she may even show affection, but beneath it she feels burdened by his need. She is not drawn deeper, she is drained. Yet when a man embraces silence, something else occurs. The feminine leans into it, like water seeking the basin that holds it. She senses that here is a man who will not collapse into her moods, nor shatter under her storms. She feels the depth of a man who does not perform, who does not beg, who does not crumble. And in that depth, she feels safe to reveal her own chaos, knowing he will not be swept away. Marcus Aurelius counseled himself daily to remember that all external things are fleeting, that beauty, praise, attention are no more stable than the waves. To attach one's worth to them is to drown. Modern psychology echoes this. A secure man does not define himself by the gaze of others, but by his alignment with his values. His nervous system is calm, not because the world is calm, but because he has disciplined himself to remain so. This discipline, carried into dating, is rare, beyond measure. Ask yourself, how many men can sit across from a woman they desire and remain unshaken when her attention wanders? How many can allow her to be silent without leaping to entertain? How many can desire without collapsing into need? These are not common virtues, but they are the very soil of attraction. For the feminine does not seek perfection in the masculine. She seeks steadiness. She seeks the unmoved mover, the axis around which her own storm can swirl without fear of losing the center. Jung described individuation as the path toward wholeness, the integration of shadow, anima, and the fragmented self into a being who no longer lives, split between masks. The man who walks this path enters relationships differently. He no longer sees a woman as the missing half of his soul, but as another sovereign presence with whom he may intertwine. He does not beg her to heal him, nor force her to complete him. He meets her as an equal flame, not as a candle, seeking another to spark. This is the essence of high value. You are not bargaining for love with the currency of approval. You are not offering your soul in exchange for validation. You stand, full already, and offer from abundance. She may come closer, or she may turn away, but either choice does not move the ground beneath your feet. That steadiness is felt before it is understood. She may not articulate it, but she knows it. This man does not need me, and that is why I feel free to choose him. It is in this paradox that true attraction flourishes. Desperation suffocates. Sovereignty liberates. The woman who feels free in your presence will give herself more fully than the one who feels cornered by your need. She will not run from you because you do not cling. She will not test you endlessly because you have already passed the only test that matters. You have mastered yourself. So sit with the silence. Let her delays, her withdrawals, her tests wash over you like waves against rock. Feel the temptation to react, to chase, to prove, and then let it pass. Each time you do, you temper yourself. Each time you resist, you forge the steel of sovereignty. And in time, you will find that you no longer fear the void. You carry within you the fullness that no absence can diminish. The man who lives in alignment with Stoic principles does not mistake attachment for devotion. He does not confuse the flicker of attraction with a contract for permanence. Instead, he understands that all things, her beauty, her laughter, even her presence, are gifts lent by time, not possessions to be hoarded. Seneca once reminded his students, "We borrow everything. We own nothing." A man who forgets this truth clutches so tightly that he smothers the very flame he seeks to preserve. This is why desperation always corrodes. To make her your oxygen is to place yourself in constant suffocation. The desperate man does not love. He clings. He does not offer. He demands. Every gesture, every word is an attempt to purchase her approval, to stitch his identity together with the thread of her attention. But threads fray, and when they do, he unravels. The man of value, however, is not stitched together by anyone else's gaze. His fabric is woven in solitude, in discipline, in the nightly confrontation with his own shadow. He knows that the woman he desires may stay, or she may leave, but neither path alters the truth of who he is. He is whole, whether she sits beside him or walks away. This wholeness is not a performance. It is the silent magnetism that makes his presence linger in her mind long after she turns her head. Modern psychology echoes this timeless wisdom. Anxious attachment cries out for reassurance. Avoidant detachment flees from intimacy. Both are extremes, both born of unintegrated wounds. But the secure man, the Stoic man, moves between desire and detachment with balance. He does not fear intimacy, but neither does he collapse into it. He does not run from love, but neither does he drown in it. This balance is rare, and because it is rare, it is precious. Imagine again the scene of courtship. Her eyes lock with his, playful, daring. In that gaze, she silently asks a question. Will you lose yourself in me, or will you remain yourself beside me? Most men fail here. They mistake her test for rejection and scramble to prove their worth. But the sovereign man does not scramble. He smiles, he holds her gaze, but his essence remains anchored. He does not hand her the keys to his self-worth, for he knows that kingdom is his alone to guard. The feminine longs to surrender, but she cannot surrender to fragility. She cannot pour herself into a vessel that leaks with need. What she seeks is the vessel that holds, that contains, that steadies. And when she finds it, her storm can rage freely, knowing she will not destroy what holds her. This is why the man of value does not need to chase. He becomes the axis. He becomes the gravity. She circles, not because he pulls, but because he stands unmoved. And so, the work is inward. To be high value without desperation is not to memorize tactics, but to rewrite the architecture of your soul. It is to confront the parts of you that fear rejection like death, and to remind them, I am not undone by absence, nor completed by presence. I am whole as I am. From this foundation, love becomes not survival, but abundance. Connection becomes not clinging, but communion. If you would master this, practice detachment not as avoidance, but as presence without chains. Let her come closer, and let her walk away, with the same calm breath. Let silence stretch without rushing to fill it. Let her moods shift without scrambling to chase them. In this steadiness, you become more than a suitor. You become a sanctuary. For in the end, desperation is loud, but sovereignty is silent. And it is silence, not noise, that echoes longest in the heart. There is a quiet dignity in the man who no longer bargains for love. His value is not a performance, but a presence. He does not parade himself, nor does he plead. He walks into the room as though he belongs to himself first, and only then can he belong to another. That self-possession radiates more power than any charm or clever line, for it whispers to the feminine, here is a man I cannot shake, a man I cannot move from his axis. The desperate man, by contrast, wears his heart like a currency, spending it recklessly in hopes of return. He bends, he appeases, he overextends. But every act of overextension announces a hidden truth, that he believes he must earn what cannot be earned, his worth. This hidden belief poisons his gestures, turning generosity into obligation, desire into dependence. Women recoil not because he gives, but because his giving bleeds with the scent of lack. The Stoic man knows the difference. He gives freely because he can afford to. He does not overinvest because he has no hunger to cover. He does not collapse in rejection because his fortress is not built on shifting sands. He embodies what Marcus Aurelius counseled. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The outside event of attraction, the dance of romance, the uncertainty of her choice, none of these dictate his essence. His power remains intact, regardless of outcome. Modern psychology frames this as secure attachment, the ability to desire intimacy without being enslaved by it. It is the freedom to love without fear, to let go without collapse. When a man carries this security, he does not suffocate his partner with need, nor does he retreat in cold avoidance. He stands, offering himself fully, but with the strength to remain whole if she turns away. This paradox of openness and independence is precisely what makes him irresistible. Consider the way the feminine tests, not through logic, but through instinct. She may delay in her reply. She may grow cold for a moment. She may withdraw her attention. To the desperate man, these are daggers. To the sovereign man, they are ripples on the surface of an unshaken sea. He does not panic, nor does he retaliate. He remains. And in that remaining, she discovers a rare truth, that her storms do not topple him. This discovery awakens respect, and respect is the womb of desire. The Jungian lens reveals another layer. The woman does not consciously seek to punish, but to confirm. She needs to feel the masculine presence that can hold her unconscious chaos. If she senses that he collapses under the smallest test, she knows, without words, that he cannot hold her depths. But if she feels him unyielding, steady in silence, sovereign in solitude, her own unconscious relaxes. She surrenders, not from defeat, but from recognition. This is why the man who does not chase becomes the man who is pursued. He radiates the paradox of freedom. He desires, but he does not need. He invites, but he does not beg. He chooses, but he does not cling. His value is not an act for her, but a truth within him. And because it is real, it cannot be shaken by her silence, her rejection, or her distance. Every moment you restrain your impulse to chase, every silence you allow without breaking, every test you withstand without flinching. These are the unseen battles that shape you. They forge the iron of sovereignty. And when you walk into love from this place, you no longer carry the scent of desperation. You carry the fragrance of freedom. There is a transformation that occurs when a man no longer flinches at the prospect of loss. He sees clearly that love, desire, attraction, all of these are rivers that flow in and out of his life. He does not attempt to dam them with desperation, nor does he curse them when they change course. He allows, he observes, he chooses. This acceptance is not passivity, it is mastery. For the man who fears no loss is the man who cannot be controlled. The desperate man is ruled by outcomes. If she replies, he breathes. If she delays, he collapses. If she stays, he feels alive. If she leaves, he feels annihilated. His worth rides the roller coaster of her attention. This is why he is weak, though he may dress himself in strength. True strength is not revealed when she stays. It is revealed when she goes. Only then do you discover whether your foundation is yours or hers. The sovereign man knows this deeply. He remembers the words of Epictetus, "Seek not for events to happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do, and you shall go on well." This wisdom, when carried into romance, shifts everything. He does not wrestle with what she chooses. He does not cling when she withdraws. He meets reality as it is, and because he does, he remains free. The woman senses this. She feels that her power to sway him is limited, and in that limitation, she feels respect. Respect is the ground of attraction. Without it, desire decays. A woman may indulge a desperate man, but she does not revere him. She may use his devotion, but she does not long for it. What ignites longing is not neediness, but sovereignty. It is the rare encounter with a man who desires her, yet would remain whole if she vanished. She leans toward this, not because he chases, but because he does not. From the Jungian perspective, the man who collapses into desperation has not yet confronted his shadow of abandonment. He projects it outward, forcing every woman he meets to carry the ghost of his old wounds. She feels it, even if she cannot name it, that she is being asked to fill a role too heavy for her. But when a man integrates this shadow, when he sits with the boy who was once overlooked and assures him that he is safe, he ceases to project. He approaches her clean, unburdened, present. This presence is intoxicating. She feels not the pull of his need, but the gravity of his wholeness. He does not grasp, and because he does not grasp, she feels free to give. He does not beg for closeness, and because he does not beg, she offers it willingly. This is the paradox that eludes so many men. What you clutch slips away. What you release flows toward you. You must train for this. Just as a Stoic soldier trained his body against cold, hunger, and fatigue, so must you train your spirit against anxiety, loneliness, and longing. Sit with the ache of her silence. Endure the fire of rejection without flinching. Let the storm pass without chasing after it. Each time you endure without collapse, you temper your essence. Each time you resist the urge to prove, you strengthen your sovereignty. In the end, high value without desperation is not a mask you wear in dating. It is a state of being that bleeds into every corner of your life. It shows in the way you carry yourself at work, in friendships, in solitude. It shows in how you respond when the world denies you. And because it is real, it cannot be faked. The woman who meets such a man will feel it, as surely as she feels the warmth of fire or the stillness of stone. There is a sacred stillness in the man who has come to terms with impermanence. He no longer clutches at what is passing, nor does he curse what is gone. He understands, as Marcus Aurelius did, that everything borrowed by fate must one day be returned. To hold a woman as though she is permanent is to dishonor both her and the truth of existence. To cherish her, while knowing she may leave, is the highest form of strength. The desperate man resists this truth. He builds castles of fantasy upon the shifting sands of another's affection. When she withdraws, the castle collapses, and he mistakes the ruins for his identity. His suffering is not born from her absence, but from his refusal to accept that she was never his to possess. What breaks him is not rejection, but illusion. The sovereign man, however, loves without illusion. He desires without delusion. He welcomes the beauty of connection, but he does not mistake it for oxygen. He can say to himself, as Epictetus once taught, "You are not mine. You are only lent to me by time. I will honor you while you remain and release you when you go." This quiet detachment does not weaken his love, it strengthens it. For love offered in freedom is richer than love poisoned by fear. From a psychological lens, this is the man who has moved beyond ego projection. He no longer casts his wounds onto her, no longer expects her to rescue him from himself. He has walked through the labyrinth of his own unconscious, faced the shadows that once devoured him, and emerged whole. He does not demand that she complete him. He invites her instead to join him. This invitation carries no chains, and because it carries no chains, it is irresistible. You, listening now, must learn this dance between desire and detachment. It is not about numbing yourself to attraction. It is about holding attraction without letting it enslave you. It is about looking into her eyes and allowing desire to bloom, while remembering that your worth does not hang on her choice. This is not indifference. It is sovereignty. Women, whether consciously or not, are always searching for this sovereignty. They test, they withdraw, they stir the air with silence, not because they enjoy cruelty, but because they need to feel the weight of your presence. They want to know, can you remain whole if I pull away? Can you hold your ground when I test the edges of your stability? A man who cannot pass this test loses her respect. A man who can, without posturing, without anger, without collapse, earns her deepest trust. And so the work is simple, but not easy. Train your mind to endure rejection without crumbling. Train your heart to desire without clinging. Train your soul to love without begging. Each time you succeed, you fortify your essence. Each time you fail, you are given another chance to refine yourself. The battlefield of dating is not her response, but your reaction. For in the end, the man who is high value without desperation is the man who has freed himself from the need for control. He no longer lives as a hostage to outcomes. He no longer begs fate to favor him. He walks with dignity, whether she chooses to walk beside him or not. His worth is not a question mark, but a declaration. And in that declaration, a profound paradox unfolds. The less he grasps, the more he is grasped for. The less he clings, the more she longs to hold him. The man who knows he does not need her becomes the man she cannot forget. There is a liberation that comes when a man ceases to measure his worth by who stays and who leaves. He begins to understand that the true battlefield was never out there, but always within. Women were never the enemy, nor the prize. They were mirrors reflecting his own state of being. When he chased, he was only chasing the parts of himself he had not yet claimed. When he clung, he was clinging to illusions of incompleteness. The Stoics knew this truth long before modern psychology gave it new language. The greatest freedom is freedom from the tyranny of needing others to validate you. Seneca taught that he who is content with himself is never truly alone. Jung echoed that the individuated man carries within him both the masculine and feminine, reconciled into wholeness, and thus no longer projects his hunger outward. This is the man who approaches dating not as a battlefield for survival, but as a canvas for choice. He chooses because he is free to choose. He loves because he is free to love. He is not seduced by desperation, nor does he inspire it in others. His presence is like a calm flame, inviting, warming, illuminating, yet never devouring. The woman who meets him feels not the pressure of his need, but the depth of his freedom. And freedom, more than charm or beauty, is what awakens the deepest respect. This respect grows into desire, because the feminine craves to surrender into something unshakable, not to a man who begs, but to a man who stands, not to a man who collapses, but to one who endures. When she feels his steadiness, she feels safe to open, to reveal, to give herself without fear of being consumed. And so the final paradox stands clear. The man who stops chasing becomes the man who is pursued. The man who no longer pleads becomes the man women lean toward. The man who does not crumble in silence becomes the man whose silence they long to fill. He embodies what countless men spend lifetimes searching for, not tricks, not tactics, but the quiet authority of one who is whole. This is what it means to be high value without desperation. It is not a strategy. It is not a mask. It is the inevitable fragrance of a soul that has faced itself, embraced its shadow, and emerged free. And so, we end with this truth.